And my first thought was, how are these guys not in jail, A, or not dead? That were the two things that went through my head. We went to the Screaming Mad George monster contest. Do you know who Screaming Mad George is?
No.
Oh, you should
I,
interview
I,
him.
I, I feel I should know who that is though.
Yeah, he was the Japanese guy that did the big bug in Big Trouble in Little China. You know, the big sewer bug.
Oh, right. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he did Carrie Ann out of Poltergeist too, you know, when she as
Oh,
well as all
great.
this other stuff. And he used to combine bunraku puppetry
Oh,
and
wow.
different techniques. But he created this monster contest in '87, and you basically dressed up and built a costume, and you went to this big convention. He did it in '87 and 1990, and Dick Smith and Rick Baker and Greg Hanneman that were judges. But everyone was there. It was like Steve Wang, you know, Norman Cabrera, Bart Nixon was probably there,
Wow.
all the
Wow.
effects guys.
Do
So,
you by any chance know Gino Acevedo?
do you know? Oh, of course.
Yeah, I got to speak
Yeah.
to him too. What a lovely guy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We knew of Gino,
Hmm.
and then I went over and did Narnia and The Hobbit,
Oh, well, yeah, right.
and I went over and did like on set makeup and prosthetics for some of the characters, and yeah, he's one
One
of the
of the
legends.
legends. It's so tough, Paul, trying to figure out what movies to speak to you about because you've done so many cool movies and because we don't have that much time, I just thought to myself, we got to get quality instead of quantity, So
Sure.
there are a couple that we're going to focus on, but we'll just we'll sort of rock and roll with it and see where it goes. Now, the movie that I'd like to start talking about, and this is really not to bash any other movies, but I thought it was quite interesting because 2022 was this year where a lot of movie fans, particularly horror movie fans, went into the year in anticipation of the new Exorcist movie. Great director, Blumhouse. This was, the big Exorcist movie. But yet, the movie that towards the end of the year that everyone was sort of left speaking about was this other completely off the beaten track little horror movie called Talk to Me. And that was like the big hit of 2022. And that was a movie that you worked on. It blew me away. I mean, there's so much that we could talk about in terms of what it was about that movie that deserves praise. But one of the aspects was certainly the special effects and those good old fashioned practical effects. What was your role in the movie? And
Mhm.
what kind of techniques and technologies did you use to create this seriously motley crew of possessed characters?
Well, we did all the special makeup effects, prosthetics, on-set gags. There's a lot in the film that you probably don't realize is prosthetics or extensive prosthetics. The Quane character that brings Riley into hell, he's pretty much a full body makeup. But he's very quickly cut in the film. But he had, torso and wounds all over him. All his legs were covered in wounds. And we did shoot a lot of wide stuff. It was, but in the actual final cut, they kept it quite contained.
Mm.
But he was like a 7 hour makeup. A lot of the characters in Hell
Hmm.
were silicon, almost like silicon masks. All those Hell sequences, and I think we did about 10 different just deformed heads and sculpts. I don't know if you know much about the Australian film industry, but we had this period in the '80s which was called the Aussie exploitation period, where we had films like BMX Bandits, which was Nicole Kidman's first film. And there was a lot of genre directors around the time that they called it the B grade Aussie exploitation. And if you've watched any Tarantino documentaries, he cites a lot of directors like Richard Franklin and Brian Trenchard Smith, who did Road Games and The Man from Hong Kong and all these great Aussie films that it was a period between like 1980 to like 85.
Right.
But the reason it happened was that the government offered this 100 to 110% tax rebate.
Okay.
So if you invested into a film, if you put $100 in, you got $110 back. But it was a real interesting period of, like we did. I don't know if you've heard of Razorback. And
I was just about to mention
Yeah,
Razorback.
yeah.
I actually remember that movie quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, so movies like that were quite common. So there's always been that interest in doing those types of movies here.
Mm.
And obviously in the last 20, 30 years, with all the studios opening up around the country and a lot of American productions
Mm.
coming over, to do their Marvel films,
Right.
has been good and bad.
Why
And
would it be you mentioned I'm from South Africa, and a similar thing has sort of happened in South Africa, where a lot of the big Hollywood movies will get shot over there for a whole variety of reasons, weather being, one of them, and cheaper crews would be another one. But how would that impact the industry in Australia negatively? I mean, one can understand how did it impact it positively, but why would it also be, on the other hand, a negative thing?
because it chews up a lot of crews sometimes. Disney bought Fox Studios in Sydney.
Mm.
So pretty much everything that is shot there is a Disney movie. So we used to shoot commercials there and other productions there, but now Disney own it, no one can get in there. It's literally just an extension of their LA studio. So there's that aspect of it. And also when those big films do come in, if you've got a big Marvel film and you've got, another big film, they just chew up a lot of crew, which is good, I guess, because people are getting work.
Jumping back into Talk to Me, what has the response been? I know that the movie's won quite a lot of awards for the makeup effects and the special effects, but have there been any sort of unexpected kind of reactions from the audience?
I remember reading a few reviews that said something like the gore is not too over the top, but ghastly realistic or something.
Yeah.
And the whole vibe from the beginning was to make it all very realistic with a slight sort of artistic exaggeration in some areas. But it was all very much based in reality and trying, we didn't go, like with Quain, for example, we didn't go creaturey.
Mm-mm.
He was meant to be a possessed, with burnt skin, sort of because he was in hell, but we wanted him to look creepy, but someone that you'd probably see in a nursing home or something.
Yeah.
So, you could have done like a demon-y thing there, like The Exorcist, but it wouldn't have worked. It would have taken you out of the reality of the movie. Because it was meant to be, you're watching this movie, it's just a bunch of kids playing with the hand, sort of a metaphor for a Ouija board,
Yeah.
the
A Ouija board or a
Ouija
sort
board,
of
yeah. And so you think it's just sort of going to be that, and then when Riley starts self smashing his head, which even though we shot that, we didn't know exactly when it was going to happen, and not the whole audience just freaked out. I don't know if you know the directors, the brothers, have a YouTube channel called Raka Raka. Do you know?
I actually don't know about that.
Okay, so they're very much into wrestling.
Okay.
But when I say wrestling, I mean, when they smash fluoro tubes over each other.
Okay.
And jump on glass and
Right.
barbed wire, and it's that I don't know what the style's called.
Okay.
But how they sort of were discovered, so if you look up YouTube, Raka Raka, RACKA, they've got like 130, and they had this following, and they do all these crazy videos, which involve fighting and wrestling and visual effects, and they did it all themselves to sort of, and you think it's just a couple of guys mucking around, but then you realize, they've actually gone to quite, extensive trouble in these videos, and they have a guy fly down like Superman, and they're throwing a car onto someone's lawn, but they do all these really little sort of horror, and they had this huge following.
Right.
And then they wrote this script, and that's sort of how they got discovered. But
Okay.
yeah, even when they were doing the sort of promotional circuit in Australia and doing all the TV shows and the morning shows, they were just and even when they did the ACTRA Awards, which is our film industry awards, they were just like they're like two characters just over the top, and they're like pretending to wrestle each other, and
Yeah.
because they're just so sort of full of energy.
I was actually
So
wondering about that because I listened to the Joe Rogan interview with the two of them, and
yeah,
it's the first time that I'd ever heard or seen them. Of course, I'd heard of them because of Talk to Me, but they sounded completely bonkers. They sounded like completely off the wall and like a lot of fun. So
absolutely, yeah.
I was wondering what it was like to like work with him. What's the sort of work dynamic between Danny and Michael Phillipou?
Well, interestingly enough, when we were shooting, they were quite focused, and but they were high, very high energy. And then we would have, lunch and everything, and that's when they would sort of
Mm.
get rid of their sort of hyper energy. But they were very hyper, and they'd often stay up at night editing, so that because it was a tight shooting schedule, they had to make sure they had everything. So they'd do a rough cut that night and then come back and go, oh, we just need this shot. They were very
Very solid work ethic.
yeah, absolutely. When I first heard we were doing the project, and they said, oh, just look up the YouTube channel, and my first thought was, how are these guys not in jail, or not dead? That were the two things that went through my head. But yeah,
Yeah.
they were great to work with.
Yeah.
And also too, because they loved all the stuff that, we grew up on, from The Thing to American Werewolf and all those movies.
So
We were like,
they serious horror fans, like old school horror fans, as
yeah, yeah. So we were sort of like
the guardians of the tour.
the Oracle Gardens of horror movies sort of thing that could guide them. We're like, oh, so you want a bit of, you wanted a bit Cronenberg, yeah, we wanted a bit Videodrome, and
Cool.
that's sort of how we would talk. We also
Right.
did that with the Wachowskis actually
On the
on
Matrix.
the Matrix, but we'll get to the Matrix.
Yes, you'll definitely get to the Matrix.